Elena had always been a quiet girl, the kind of person who blended into the background of her own life. At 22, she still worked at the same small-town bookstore she'd started in as a teenager. Day after day, she stacked the same paperbacks, dusted the same shelves, and smiled politely at customers who rarely remembered her name. Her world was small, a loop of routine and silence. But all of that changed the night she first saw him. It was late, long after the store had closed, when Elena curled up on her bed with a streaming site glowing on her laptop. She hadn't expected much. The film was an indie drama, but then Adrian Vale appeared on screen. He was luminous. Not just handsome, but magnetic. The camera loved him, and Elena felt as though he was speaking directly to her. His smile, boyish yet sly, made her chest tighten. His voice, warm and textured, echoed long after the credits rolled. From that night on, Adrian became her secret. She scoured the internet for every interview, every clip, every photo. She replayed his laughter on talk shows until she could mimic it perfectly. She clipped out magazine spreads and arranged them carefully on her bedroom wall, a shrine of glossy smiles watching over her as she slept. Elena started keeping a diary, but it wasn't for herself anymore. It was for him. Each entry began the same way. Dear Adrian. At first, they were confessions of admiration. But as days passed, the words grew more intimate, like letters between lovers separated by distance. She told him about her day, her dreams, her loneliness. She imagined his replies. Every time she looked at his photo, a certainty bloomed inside her. He just doesn't know me yet. But he will. Elena's life narrowed into a single focus, Adrian. Every morning before work, she scrolled through his fan pages, memorizing new posts, new photos. She knew his schedule better than her own. The interviews he gave, the premieres he would attend, even the brand of coffee he liked. When his film won an award, Elena celebrated with cake in her apartment, whispering to his photo, "We did it." Her bedroom had transformed into a shrine. Posters lined the walls, magazines stacked high on her nightstand, and her phone gallery overflowed with screenshots. She had even downloaded a wallpaper app that made his face appear every time she unlocked her screen. But watching wasn't enough. Elena started sending letters, long, rambling confessions that filled pages. She poured her soul into them, writing as though Adrian would read every word and fall in love with her honesty. She added little details, a spritz of her perfume, doodles of hearts in the margins. She mailed dozens. Then hundreds. But there was no reply. When Adrian attended a movie premiere in the city 2 hours away, Elena spent her savings on a bus ticket. She stood for hours among screaming fans, clutching a poster and a pen, heart pounding at the thought of seeing him. And she did, just for a moment. He passed, smiling, signing autographs, but his eyes never landed on her. The crowd surged, pushing her back. Her hand stretched forward, desperate, but he moved past her as though she didn't exist. The sting of being invisible burrowed deep. That night, staring at her wall of Adrian's photos, Elena whispered, "Why didn't you see me?" Tears blurred her vision. But the pain didn't break her, it hardened her. Each rejection twisted into something new inside her, determination, anger, longing. She began to act out scenes in her bedroom mirror. She would stand across from her reflection and imagine Adrian there. She spoke her lines softly, sweetly, then switched voices, lowering her tone to mimic him. "I love you, Elena," she'd say in his voice. "I love you too, Adrian," she'd answer as herself. It became ritual, her nightly rehearsal of the life she was certain was meant to be. At work, her coworkers noticed the faraway look in her eyes. She shelved books on autopilot, barely hearing when customers spoke. When a colleague teased her about the magazines of Adrian she brought to lunch, Elena only smiled faintly. "They don't understand," she thought, her fingers tracing his photo. "He's the one for me. He always has been." And somewhere deep inside her, a dangerous certainty began to root itself: Adrian was already hers. Reality had always been unkind to Elena. No matter how much she tried, letters, events, waiting for hours in the cold, Adrian never looked at her. So she decided to change reality. It began innocently enough, or so she told herself. On a fan forum, she created a new account under the name Moonlight Muse. She wrote vague posts about being close to Adrian, hinting that she had insider knowledge. When people questioned her, she laughed it off with winking emojis and cryptic comments. But the taste of attention was intoxicating. For the first time, people leaned in, curious about her. The small lies grew bigger. Elena posted about secret phone calls, how Adrian would whisper her name late at night, how they shared inside jokes no one else could know. She described meeting him at quiet cafes, how he wore a baseball cap to stay unnoticed. Her words dripped with detail, too much detail. Some mocked her. "Yeah, right," one user replied. "Show us proof." And so, Elena did. She downloaded photo editing software and spent nights stitching together pictures. A grainy photo of Adrian walking down a street became a date photo with Elena at his side, her hand looped through his arm. A still from a film became a candid kiss, her face pasted over the actress's. When she posted the pictures, the reaction was explosive. Some fans cried foul, pointing out odd shadows and mismatched lighting. But others believed. The seed of doubt spread. Elena wasn't satisfied. She wanted the world to hear him love her. With borrowed money, she bought a voice-mimicking program. Hours of Adrian's interviews gave her the material she needed. Soon she was crafting short audio clips, Adrian murmuring, "Elena, I love you." His voice saying her name, his voice laughing with her. She released the recordings online. The effect was devastating. Some fans swore the clips were real, that no software could sound so natural. Rumors spread like fire. Adrian Vale was hiding a girlfriend, lying to the world. Elena watched it all unfold from her bedroom, her heart racing. Each like, each share, each heated argument online filled her with triumph. Her fantasy was no longer separate from her life. It was her life. And the more the world doubted, the more she believed. Adrian Vale was used to gossip. Fame, after all, came with its parasites. But this was different. It started small. His agent showed him a fan forum thread about a supposed girlfriend posting stories. Adrian had laughed. People make things up all the time. Ignore it. But the rumors didn't fade. They grew. Within weeks, entertainment sites began running articles, "Does Adrian Vale have a secret lover?" Online debates raged. Some fans defended him, others demanded honesty. His name trended constantly, no longer for his acting but for scandal. Then the photos surfaced. At first glance, they were convincing, him holding a woman's hand, his arm around her shoulders, their lips brushing in a blurry shot. Adrian froze when his agent shoved the prints across the table. "This is insane," he muttered. "That's not me, or at least, that's not real." "You need to say something," his agent pressed. And so he did. At a press conference meant to promote his latest film, Adrian addressed the rumors head-on. Cameras flashed, reporters leaned forward, waiting for drama. "I want to make something clear," Adrian said, his jaw tight. "I do not have a secret girlfriend. I have never met this woman. The claims circulating online are false." But the denial didn't stop the storm. Elena countered almost immediately, posting new evidence, more photos, a supposed screenshot of text messages where Adrian called her "my star," even longer voice clips of him saying, "Don't listen to them. We know the truth." Every time Adrian defended himself, Elena twisted his words. His flat denial. Proof that he was ashamed of her. His silence. Proof that his team forced him to hide their love. Fans split down the middle. Loyalists screamed his innocence, but others accused him of gaslighting Elena, of being a coward. The tabloids loved it. Directors whispered about his unreliability. Endorsements pulled back. Adrian's career, once a comet blazing across Hollywood, began to sputter under the weight of her lies. Alone in his apartment, Adrian scrolled through the posts in disbelief. His face, his voice, his name, weaponized against him. He slammed the phone down and muttered into the empty room. "Who the hell are you?" Far away, in her tiny bedroom plastered with his posters, Elena smiled at the screen. To her, his denial wasn't rejection. It was a test of love. And she was determined to pass. The storm didn't pass. It grew darker. Adrian Vale, once a rising star, began to see his world crumble piece by piece. The first blow came when a major sports brand quietly cut him from their upcoming campaign. A press release cited creative differences, but Adrian knew the truth. Sponsors didn't want their wholesome ambassador linked to words like liar and cheater. Next came the films. A role he had been preparing for, his first as a leading man in a blockbuster franchise, was suddenly recast due to scheduling conflicts. Adrian hadn't changed his schedule. They had simply decided he wasn't worth the risk anymore. Headlines turned cruel. Adrian Vale, heartthrob or heartbreaker. Actor accused of manipulating secret lover. The double life of Adrian Vale. No matter what he said, no matter how strongly he denied, Elena always had a counter. And she basked in it. Elena had perfected her anonymous persona. She began appearing in interviews with her face blurred and her voice distorted, playing the part of the wounded girlfriend. She cried on camera about betrayal, about how Adrian had begged her to stay hidden, how he whispered promises he never kept. Journalists ate it up. The drama was irresistible. For the first time in her life, Elena wasn't invisible. She was important. The girl no one noticed at the bookstore was now at the center of every headline. And she thrived in the chaos, smiling to herself as she read comments of people defending her, calling Adrian a monster. But shadows stirred. Not everyone was convinced. A small but determined group of Adrian's most loyal fans started to dig. They scrutinized every photo Elena had released. One noticed a shadow falling in the wrong direction. Another pointed out metadata that suggested the photos had been edited days after they were supposedly taken. And the voice recordings, those supposed declarations of love, sounded convincing to casual ears, but digital forensics told a different story. Analysts uncovered unnatural patterns, clipped audio stitched together from interviews. Slowly, a different picture began to form. Adrian wasn't a liar. He was a victim. The final blow came from a team of online forensic experts. They released a 30-page report with detailed analysis, screenshots, and comparisons. The conclusion was undeniable. Every shred of Elena's so-called proof was fabricated. The photos were doctored, the text messages forged, the voice recordings artificially generated. Her entire fantasy was built on lies. The media turned overnight. Where once they pitted her as the wronged girlfriend, now they condemned her. Fraud. Stalker. Delusional liar. The police became involved. Adrian, weary but resolute, filed formal charges for defamation and harassment. It wasn't just about clearing his name anymore, it was about reclaiming his life. Elena's apartment was raided. Officers carried out computers, hard drives, and stacks of notebooks filled with scrawled fantasies about Adrian. The walls were worse, every inch covered with his face, magazine cutouts, printed screenshots, even crude sketches where a stick figure stood beside him. In court, the case was swift. Experts testified about the faked evidence. Software engineers explained how the voice and video clips were pieced together. Witnesses came forward, Adrian's friends, his co-workers, his agent, all confirming he had never even met Elena. And through it all, Elena sat silently at the defense table. Her hair was unkempt, her face pale, but her lips curved in the faintest smile, as if none of it mattered. When the prosecutor asked if she had anything to say, she only tilted her head and whispered, almost sweetly. "They just don't understand. He loves me. He always has." The courtroom shivered. The verdict was clear and merciless. Elena Carter was guilty of defamation, identity fraud, and harassment. The judge's voice echoed in the packed courtroom as he laid out her sentence: 5 years in prison with mandatory psychiatric evaluation and treatment. Gasps rippled through the gallery. The press scribbled furiously. The story that had once centered on Adrian Vale's supposed betrayal had now transformed into a cautionary tale of obsession and ruin. Adrian, sitting stiffly in his suit, finally had his chance to confront the woman who had nearly destroyed him. He stood, his expression carefully composed, though the tightness in his jaw betrayed his lingering anger. The room fell silent as his voice broke through. "I don't know you," he said, each word deliberate, steady but heavy with pain. "I have never known you. And yet, you ruined years of my life. You cost me work. You cost me trust. You almost cost me myself. All of it, for nothing." Elena turned her head toward him, her dark eyes glittering with something unreadable. Then she smiled, not warmly, not apologetically, but with the smug satisfaction of someone convinced she had won. "You'll thank me one day," she whispered, loud enough for the microphones to catch. "We were meant to be." The courtroom stirred in discomfort. Reporters glanced at each other, scribbling down her final words. The gavel struck, final and unforgiving. 2 bailiffs moved to her side. Cold metal cuffs clicked around her wrists. Still smiling faintly, Elena allowed herself to be led away, her gaze never leaving Adrian's. And for a brief, chilling moment, Adrian felt as though she wasn't the one behind bars, he was. Trapped forever in her story. Adrian Vale did not disappear. It took time, longer than he ever expected. At first, he struggled to walk down the street without hearing whispers, without seeing phones raised to record him like an animal in a zoo. Though the courts had cleared him, though the truth had been laid bare, the stain of the scandal lingered. Some producers still hesitated, fearing the controversy would follow him. Some fans still doubted, muttering online about how money and power could cover up secrets. But Adrian persisted. He took smaller roles, indie projects, anything to stay alive in the industry. Slowly, the warmth of audiences began to return, not as blind adoration, but as cautious forgiveness. And yet, the scars remained. He was sharper now, less trusting. Every time a stranger asked for a photo, a flicker of paranoia crossed his mind. Every fan letter he received, no matter how innocent, carried the ghost of Elena's words. Fame, once a golden gift, had become a cage of glass, transparent, fragile, and suffocating. Meanwhile, behind the thick gray walls of a women's correctional facility, Elena Carter lived in a different kind of cage. Doctors evaluated her frequently, noting her detachment from reality. Despite therapy sessions, despite medication, she clung fiercely to her fantasy. "Yes, I know he denied me," she would say sweetly. "But that was for the cameras. He's protecting me. Protecting us." When asked about the fabricated photos and recordings, she laughed, tilting her head in that unnerving way. Fabricated? No. They just can't see it. But Adrian can. Adrian knows. Her cell was sparse, but she had turned it into another shrine, pages ripped from magazines, her own crude sketches of herself and Adrian together. In her journal, she continued her nightly ritual, writing entries that began with, "Dear Adrian." To Elena, time in prison was not punishment. It was waiting. Waiting for the day he would finally admit the truth and come for her. And as the world outside moved on, as Adrian rebuilt his career and tried to reclaim the life stolen from him, Elena sat smiling in the shadows, her delusion unbroken. Because in the darkest corners of her mind, the story wasn't over. Not yet. Not ever.